Get ready to dive into the dark side of Texas as we explore the top 10 most notorious criminals to ever grace the Lone Star State. From notorious serial killers to ruthless gangsters, this list has it all. From the infamous Charles Starkweather to the mysterious Angel Matrino Resendez, this video takes a deep dive into the twisted mind of some of the most dangerous individuals to ever call Texas home. So buckle up and prepare to be shocked and fascinated as we count down the top 10 criminals from Texas. But before we get started, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified about our amazing upcoming informative videos. Now sit back, relax, and let's go. At number 10 we have Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were notorious outlaws and criminals who operated in the central United States during the Great Depression. Their crime spree extended across several states and included robbery, murder, and kidnapping. They became legendary figures during the 1930s and their daring exploits were widely covered in the media. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were eventually ambushed and killed by law enforcement in 1934. Their story has been adapted into numerous movies and TV shows, cementing their place in American cultural history. Number 9. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer who terrorized California and Texas in the 1980s. He was convicted of 13 counts of murder and several other crimes, including burglary and sexual assault. Ramirez's crime spree was characterized by its brutality, and he was known for targeting elderly women, couples, and children. He was eventually captured and sentenced to death in California in 1989. Ramirez died in prison in 2013 while awaiting execution. Despite his crimes, he has been the subject of numerous books and documentaries and has become a cult figure in some circles. Number 8. Charles Whitman. Charles Whitman was an American mass murderer who killed 16 people and injured 31 others in a shooting spree at the University of Texas at Austin on August 1, 1966. He shot his victims from the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower, which was one of the tallest buildings in the city at the time. Before embarking on the shooting spree, Whitman had killed his wife and mother, for which he left notes expressing his distress and asking for an autopsy to determine if there was a medical explanation for his actions. The incident was one of the deadliest mass shootings in American history and prompted a review of gun control laws. In the aftermath of the shooting, Whitman was killed by police officers who stormed the observation deck. Number 7. David Koresh. David Koresh was the leader of the Branch Davidians, a religious cult in Waco, Texas. He died in a 51-day standoff with federal law enforcement in 1993 that resulted in the deaths of 76 people, including himself. Koresh claimed to be a prophet and had convinced followers he was the final messenger of a biblical prophecy. A failed raid on weapons charges led to a gun battle and the start of the siege. The standoff ended in a fire at the compound, still a subject of debate. Number 6. Angel Matrino Resendez. Angel Matrino Resendez, also known as the Railroad Killer, was a Mexican serial killer who was active in the United States in the late 1990s. He was convicted of 9 murders and is suspected of committing as many as 15 in total. Resendez was known for his nomadic lifestyle, traveling by rail and breaking into homes to commit his crimes. He was arrested in 1999 in Illinois and was sentenced to death in Texas. He was executed by lethal injection in 2006. At number 5. Charles Starkweather. Charles Starkweather was an American spree killer who murdered 11 people in Nebraska and Wyoming in 1958. He committed his crimes with his teenage girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate, who was his accomplice in some of the murders. Starkweather's killing spree was the subject of several books and films, including the movie Badlands, which was loosely based on his life. He was arrested after a high-speed chase and was sentenced to death. He was executed by the electric chair in 1959. Number 4. James Gator Rollerson. Rollerson was a notorious American criminal and suspected serial killer who operated in the late 20th century. He was convicted of several crimes, including burglary, assault, and drug offenses, and was known for his violent temper and repeated escapes from police custody. Rollerson was a suspect in several murder cases, but he was never officially charged. He was also believed to be involved in organized crime, including drug trafficking and loan sharking. Rollerson died in a Florida prison in 2001 while serving a sentence for armed robbery. Number 3. George Banks. George Banks was an American mass murderer who killed 13 people, including 5 of his own children, in a shooting spree in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania in 1982. He had a long history of criminal behavior and had been in and out of prison several times before the killings. On the day of the massacre, Banks shot his victims, including his ex-girlfriend and her children, in several locations throughout the city. He was arrested after a standoff with police and was sentenced to death. George Banks' sentence was later commuted to life in prison, and he died in prison in 2020. Number 2. Elmer Wayne Henley. Henley was an American serial killer who was convicted for his role in the Houston mass murders in the early 1970s. Along with accomplice Dean Corll, Henley lured and murdered at least 28 teenage boys and young men. Henley himself killed 6 of the victims. He was arrested in 1973 and eventually sentenced to 6 consecutive terms of life imprisonment. The Houston mass murders case was one of the largest and most shocking serial murder cases in American history, and it remains a significant part of true crime history. Henley continues to serve his sentence in a Texas prison. At number 1 we have Henry Lee Lucas. Henry Lee Lucas was an American serial killer who claimed to have committed hundreds of murders, although the actual number of victims is uncertain. He was arrested in 1983 and eventually confessed to killing 11 people, for which he was sentenced to death. However, many of his confessions were later proven to be false, and he is believed to have committed only a small number of the murders he claimed. Lucas was sentenced to death for one of the murders he did commit and was eventually moved off of death row after his sentence was commuted to life in prison. He died in 2001 while serving his sentence in a Texas prison. And there you have it, folks, the top 10 most notorious criminals from Texas. These individuals have left a lasting impact on the state, and their crimes continue to shock and fascinate us to this day. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about the dark side of Texas. If you did, make sure to like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more exciting content. Until next time, stay curious and stay tuned.